Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Meanwhile Here on Earth. This program features in-depth conversations with the leading names in the subjects of UFOs, abductees, the paranormal, panel discussions, and the very best and brightest of the next generation of writers and researchers. Meanwhile Here on Earth, the show breaking new ground in alternative talk with your intrepid host, veteran investigative writer and researcher, Peter Robbins.
Hello, and welcome or welcome back to Meanwhile Here on Earth, as always on KGRA Digital Broadcasting. To listen live any Monday, just go to kgradb.com at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Click on live stream at the top of the page, and you are there. If you subscribe to KGRA and you use my first name as your entry code, you'll receive a 30% discount. And that concludes the commercial part of this show. A brief monologue here, just to say that when I woke up yesterday morning, I was not in my home in Ithaca. I was Ithaca, New York. I was in what looked like a very nice, perfectly set up little hotel room with a curtain where one would normally draw it and look out into the parking lot of wherever. And I woke up early and I drew the curtain and stepped out onto my little balcony, although it was quite cold, and looked out at the USS Intrepid aircraft carrier just to my south, facing the Norwegian Prima, a creature out of a science fiction movie, a ship, a mothership that can hold more than 3,000 passengers and 2,000 crew. Was more like 2,000 or so on this trip, so we weren't crowded. And I had the great fun and honor of being included in an Ancient Mysteries tour, to be Ancient Mysteries cruise, which was put together by Mr. Mike Migliore and his wife Wendy, who have done 5 previous such cruises. And for 6 days, myself and Nick Pope and colleague Micah Hanks and podcaster Jim Harold and 40 attendees had a wonderful time on board the ship. We sailed to Bermuda and back, having to leave a little early because storms were approaching. But 4 nights ago, as it was getting dark, myself and a number of my friends and new colleagues from the conference headed out on a glass-bottom boat several miles into the Bermuda Triangle. Still shallow enough that when the lights on the bottom of the boat went on, once we got out there, we were able to just go along and watch fish and beautiful growing coral and talk and drink into the night. And somehow we were returned. It's true. So paranormal isn't just the subject of the show. Sometimes it almost happens to me. With that understood, I have a very special guest tonight. He is a return guest. He was on closer to when the show actually started. And he needs no introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway. And it's a long one, so get comfortable. And a worthy one. Lee Speigel is a longtime respected journalist, producer, editor, and radio broadcaster. He has presented credible, compelling stories to the public since 1975, when he produced and wrote a documentary spoken word record album called UFOs, The Credibility Factor for CBS Records Incorporated. It marked the first time that a major recording company offered a UFO-related product via a primetime TV infomercial. For the 1976 edition of the renowned Edmund Scientific Catalog, something some of you will remember, Spiegel's album was chosen by astronomer J. Allen Hynek as one of the first ever credible UFO products offered to the public by the catalog. During production of his UFO album, at the request of Dr. Hynek, Lee went to North Carolina to investigate a series of unusual and unexplained UFO reports. It resulted in the first well-documented, multiply witnessed, triangular-shaped UFO incident in America. Speigel, a witness, and numerous law enforcement officers were among the many witnesses to this close encounter event. Lee's radio career literally took off in 1978 when he began his first of 8 years writing, producing, and hosting nearly 1,500 local and national programs on NBC radio coming out of New York City and dealing with UFOs and unexplained phenomena. Also in 1978, he became the only person in history to produce a milestone UFO presentation at the United Nations on behalf of the country of Grenada. Lee brought together leading military and scientific experts who urged world leaders to establish an international UFO research committee. Between 2010 and 2017, Lee was the chief Huffington Post writer on hundreds of stories crossing the fields of UFOs and science. In 2012, he was honored with the International UFO Congress Researcher of the Year Award. In 2020, Speigel co-wrote The Phenomenon, a thought-provoking, critically acclaimed UFO documentary from filmmaker James Fox. Lee Speigel is currently co-producer and host of the weekly Edge of Reality radio program, heard over the KUNX digital broadcasting radio network. For the same company, he is managing editor of the Onyx News magazine, writing and editing articles always with a focus on current events, research, and discoveries of the overlapping worlds of UFOs, paranormal, and unexplained phenomena. He also happens to be a soul brother and one of my dearest friends. And Lee Speigel, it is a pleasure to welcome you back to Meanwhile Here on Earth. How you doing, as we say in Queens?
Well, thank you, Peter, or should I say intrepid host, Peter.
You should. Please do.
Did you write all that stuff? Because it just...
No, actually, I didn't. Now that I think of it, that's a rarity, right?
I remember the last time I heard you do that kind of an introduction was years ago. We were outside of Philadelphia, and you introduced me on stage.
That's
because
true.
I was able to do a presentation. And I remember walking back and forth behind the curtain.
Who's he talking about?
You were going on and on and on. I remember thinking, who the hell is this guy talking about? So it's good to see you. I have a question about your recent trip to the Bermuda Triangle. I think you said earlier that, I guess when you were on the glass bottom boat.
I was in it.
You were in it. Oh, and then did you say something like, and you were returned? Is that what I heard you say?
Here we are. I mean, here I am. It's proof. I was there and I'm back.
So now my question is, are you sure that you were returned? And if you were, are you happy about that?
Well, there goes the rest of the show in contemplation.
See?
It was actually, of course, great fun. I believe fairly safe, all things considered.
Yeah.
Our tour guides were two very nice, very sharp native women from Bermuda, both a bit of a wise guy, and they did say that they had something like a 94% return rate on, and where the other tour guide had like an 88% or something. So
wow.
I can only speak for myself, but I did return. I have been to the Bermuda Triangle and back. That's bragging rights for you. Well, you have some bragging rights, and we're going to be covering some of them tonight. And I thought, because the last show that we did was a long time ago, relatively speaking, and a lot of folks don't know you like I do. And I thought, as is my usual mandate, I have this curiosity going back to childhood, how people in public life became the people they are, as you know. And we did review some of this material in our last interview conversation, but I'd like to touch on some of it again and begin, well, before the beginning. And that would be here. Who are these amazingly good-looking people?
You have just touched my heart. I don't think I can continue with this interview.
You may.
Well, those are my late, dearly departed mother and father.
Yeah. And that is their wedding photograph.
I mean, talk about a handsome couple. Whoa.
Yeah. And, I mean, it's a cliche, but a guy in a uniform, especially when it looks like that, and he's got a wife like that. Amen.
When he came back from serving our country in New Guinea, while he was in New Guinea, my mother was a secretary in the Boston area. And at night, she would go out with her girlfriends to the local dance place where they were dancing for the USO soldiers who were coming back from being overseas.
Yeah.
And as they used to tell the story, it was love at first sight. And my dad proposed to her many times. In fact, I wrote his obituary years ago when he passed. And I mentioned that he had tried to go on a date with my mother, and something got mixed up. And he went to the right address to where someone was trying to hook them up.
Yeah.
And when he got there,
I don't like where this is going.
Someone else came to the door and he said, "Are you Rosalie?" And she said, "No." He said, "Well, I don't think I'm at the right address." And that's where they should have actually officially met, to be set up by someone mutually. And it didn't happen for quite a while. And then they finally went out on a date. And he 3 or 4 times asked her to marry him. And she kept saying no for the longest time. And all I could think of was, well, here I was in between lives thinking, come on, just say yes to him. It's time for me now.
If that woman had continued to say no all those years ago, I would be sitting here right now, either talking to myself or to a completely different human being.
See, they could not have been more in love, nicer, loving, supportive grandparents. I mean, in 1970, when I decided it was time for me to leave New Hampshire, where I grew up, and they said, "Well, where are you going?" And I said, "Well, I'm a folk singer, and there's only one place that I really need to go to if I'm going to leave New Hampshire. If I want a recording contract, I either have to go to New York or all the way to the West Coast, because there's really nothing else in between. There wasn't back then, where an aspiring folk singer." And so I sold everything that I had and packed a suitcase, took all my cash, and got on a Trailways bus in October of 1970 with my suitcase and my guitar. And down to New York I went, and never looked back.
Sounds like the Paul Simon song, Homeward Bound.
Yeah. Sitting in the railroad station, have a ticket for my
destination.
Yeah. And so that's what I wanted more than anything else, was to get some kind of a recording contract. I knew the kind of places I wanted to go to once I hit New York, because this was at the very tail end of the big folk singing era in New York City in Greenwich Village.
Yeah.
And I learned from someone at the time that the one place you really want to go to is, it was either on a Monday night or a Tuesday night, where you could go to the famous, legendary Bitter End, right in the heart of Greenwich Village. And they had like Monday night open mic evenings. And you didn't even have to do anything but just show up and sign up and wait your turn and go sit in the back room where they would give you something to drink or eat. And then when it was your turn to come out to do 5 or 6 minutes, you just had to be ready to go and get up there and sing. And you could invite anyone that you wanted, either someone from a record company, or any friends that you wanted. And at the time,
what a great gift to young aspiring performers, especially given the gravitas of that legendary venue.
Well, I don't know if you remember or how many people of your audience remember, but many record album covers out of that time were shot on the stage. And the most famous one, of course, was Peter, Paul, and Mary. I think their first record album came out in 1962 or 63. And there's a picture of the three of them on that stage at the bitter end, standing in front of the famous total brick wall behind them. And I have one picture that was taken of me the night that I did my open mic, sitting there doing my songs, and you can see the brick wall behind me. And it was just a hoot. I had no stage presence whatsoever. You know, you have to, you can go someplace with high hopes, but you don't want to think that once you get there and they turn the microphone on, that you're going to sound professional, or you're going to sound interesting, or you're going to sound like anything but just being scared to death of being where you are.
Starting out.
It was so scary to me.
I have a kind of karmic connection to that same room, which was in the summer of 1976, where many similar bands were opening up for the first time at a new club some blocks to the east on the Bowery called CBGB's.
Yeah.
My sister's very first public performance in New York City with her very first incarnation of the Helen Wheels Band was not only there, but it was reviewed in the New York Times, and she received a positive review. So
cool.
What a heady moment that was for us as well. And before we go on, I'm going to flash back again, because you said something before that just stuck in my mind again, in terms of the overt and the covert influences on who we become. Our dads were veterans in the war, and, you know, growing up, very proud of them. Your dad served in New Guinea?
Yeah.
Did he ever talk to you about any of what he went through there?
He never saw any battle, but that was just a place where I don't even think he volunteered to go there. That was just, well, Mr. Speigel, we're sending you to New Guinea. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to be part of the motor vehicle department, but we're proud to have you there, and just make sure you come home safe.
Growing up, with a loving family and an active mind, do you remember once you were able to really master reading well enough to choose your own books, what kind of books first interested you? Might not have been some type, but any that had a particular impact on you growing up?
I didn't like to read very much.
Did movies kind of stand in for them, or was there something else?
I didn't go out of my way to go to the local library or to a local bookstore and look for certain kinds of books.
What captured your imagination back then?
I had a whole collection of plastic army men, some of them in different positions, some of them like...
Oh, yeah. I had the same set, I'm sure.
Ones on the ground.
And you set up battles.
I set up battles under my bed, upstairs in the second floor bedroom, but it was who they were battling.
So there's like a covert war going on under your bed at any given time that truly was above top secret in a way.
Well, and if I didn't have their protagonist or their antagonist, I guess, there wouldn't have been much of a battle going on.
Yeah.
But no, I used to set up these battles under my bed.
Your life could have gone in a very different direction, General.
Well, honorary general. But the thing is, don't you want to know who they were fighting under my bed? Okay, so they were.
Yeah, I guess so.
The army men, they were about this big, okay? But who they were fighting was about, let's say, this much bigger. And his name was Godzilla.
Oh, that's awesome.
King of the monsters.
I know.
Wow. This was back in the days when, I don't even know if they still exist, a toy company called Revell.
Great company.
They put out model kits of a variety of things, model kits of cars, of planes that you could put together when you weren't sniffing the glue that came along with them.
Revell was part of my childhood too, as was the airplane cement.
See,
it's where I started to go wrong, I think.
And well, and I bought the put it together of Godzilla because it was very much like the original 1954, 1955 Raymond Burr,
which of course made Raymond Burr a legend in film.
Well, and
he became Perry Mason.
And I didn't know at the time. Not many people knew. It was a total lie. The casting of that movie. We all, we grew up thinking, wow, Godzilla starring Raymond Burr, but I still watch it and it still pisses me off to think that was not the original Godzilla movie in science fiction. The original movie by Toho Productions was done by Japanese production crew. It was all in black and white. All the same actors from what you thought was the Raymond Burr movie, but he was nowhere to be seen. And I didn't know it for years that this science fiction movie, when they wanted it to become accepted and a hit in the United States, they went back to Toho Productions and they hired this almost unknown actor, Raymond Burr, and other English-speaking
to recut
it and insert them into the original, all Japanese version of it.
Yeah.
And when I look at it now, people say to me, "Why do you still watch it now?"
It actually, think of the impact in terms of bringing post-war science fiction, as only the Japanese could do, to an American audience. And in a way, it's an important international film. The recut version, so much so in terms of its impact on Western film history, I'm not even sure. I knew that as a fact, but I'm not even sure if I ever have seen the original.
It's all Japanese. There's no English, not even probably with subtitles you could get it.
It's a Japanese movie.
But it's all the same scenes that they used in the Raymond Burr feature. Of the
brilliant professor has to sacrifice himself at the end with the oxygen and all that sad stuff. And the young couple at least end up together, even if upset.
And at that same time, and I just realized a moment ago, if you were going to ask me, what movie did you see that got you interested in unidentified flying objects? Well,
now that was my next question, which was the subject of unidentified flying objects, now often referred to as UAPs, as opposed to UFOs, and we can spend the night discussing that. When did that interest first enter your life?
When a Toho Productions Japanese company put out a movie that was a big hit in the United States. And this one was in color because Godzilla was black and white.
Oh, yeah.
But they put out this movie called Rodan.
Yes.
In fact, the very first parakeet I ever owned, I named him Rodan.
That's beautiful.
It's like, you can't make this stuff up. Rodan was such a hit. It basically was about a gigantic flying pterodactyl creature that was supposedly bigger than what we now think of as pterodactyl dinosaurs. This thing could fly around everywhere in Japan and just destroy everything and everyone in sight. And I
you
just
can't beat that.
That was my first unidentified flying what? Rodan. But whenever people ask me, and this sometimes comes up in an interview, they'll ask me, Lee, what was my favorite movie growing up? There were two.
That's my next question.
Two that, one of them that really scared the crap out of me when I first saw it. And that actually involved
Invaders from Mars?
My heart is
probably a $50,000 budget, and I'm still scared.
Cold War
scene of
movie,
looking out the back window
at that fence that covered the grass, the sand,
and the sand that you go into.
I was so scared to death of that whole movie.
Also, it was, I believe, to this day, in the whole world of B science fiction, and well, that it's the only film made completely from the child's point of view.
Oh yeah,
And that was something we could all identify with as kids. And also, it's the first film I think that dealt with implants, very
yes,
nasty
in the
ones in
back
the
of the
back
neck.
of the
That's
neck,
right.
brain control, abduction, and of course, the chief Martian in the fishbowl, the
Yeah.
guy with his face painted silver, whatever, that was $25 worth of $1 million special effect fake terror for us kids. That was brilliant.
And
A wonderful film.
that was like 1952, 53, and that was
It
considered.
was early, but
Yeah,
that one still resonates for me. And when you said the one that made me the most frightened as a kid,
it was considered one of those movies called like the Cold War movie
yeah,
that
right.
that gave the public the idea that you're not safe from anything, whether it's coming from your backyard or from outer space.
Also, kind of a sister film in that sense with the Invasion of the Body Snatchers, the
Yeah,
groupthink, the hive mentality, the complete lack of emotion that was so brilliantly terrifying in the Invasion of the Body Snatchers. In fact, quite by chance and just out of frame, hanging on a wall within reach,
let's see
a
it.
photo that I'm removing right now.
What do you
This
got?
is not a film still. This is a production shot off, off camera
Okay,
of one of the producers or one of the actors with Mr. Kevin McCarthy himself, the star of the film,
that's right.
and a pod. All that preamble to the fact that it's inscribed.
Oh, there it is.
A
Wow.
lovely man who I got to sit and chat with for some time. And the lead question for me was, did you folks have any idea that you were making a film that would become an actually important moment in film history and really resonate and change the dynamic in sci-fi films? And he said, of course not. It was just a paycheck for a B movie. And, it stuck in your mind because it was an interesting script, but who knew?
Yeah. And it was that the first time probably where movies started coming out that said to us, be careful because the people that you think you know could have been replaced by something from another planet. And
Or communists.
Don't trust anyone. Yeah.
And you said there was a second film that had a particular impression on you back then.
In the same vein of Godzilla,
Rodan,
my personal favorite science fiction movie of all time. I will never miss an opportunity, even if they're just showing it on TV, even though I've got a few different copies of it. The original 1933 King Kong. Oh, hands down. When we first were introduced to people like Ray Harryhausen in terms of special effects.
That 18-inch model that for us was as big as a subway car.
It had never been done before.
No.
And I have two versions on CD of the original musical soundtrack by Max Steiner. He was the first movie composer.
Yeah, emigre, European emigre.
He composed a complete film as if the music was a character in the movie.
I did not realize that.
And who did he influence way back then?
Philip Glass.
John Williams. Because now John Williams is considered the best. With every single movie that John Williams has done the score for, he attributes and gives credit to Max Steiner's King Kong.
You immediately ring several bells with me. One is that I loved that film growing up too, and we all saw grainy copies on TV. Maybe 15 years ago or so, my brother-in-law and I went to see a screening of a restored print that the Cornell University Film Department or Society was showing. And it was wonderful to see it in a theater on a big screen. But for me, the greatest moment was nicely, all the resolution restored and pre-code. There is the great hand holding Fay Ray in her nightgown, and she is screaming her beautiful heart out. and the camera comes in close enough that you could see something that I couldn't have even imagined when I first saw the film on Million Dollar Movie many years ago, which was her nipples. And
Oh, yeah.
it was, gosh, movies are great. Fay Wray also, she handled with a lot of grace the years that followed of being associated with that character. She did a lot of work after that, but she was famous for telling a friend that every time she
Oh, you're frozen. Well, well. See, I believe that we're in a movie, in fact, right now, where the main
go
character.
back, there I am too.
There he is.
This is what you don't get this stuff on podcast. You don't have to pay extra here on live radio for that kind of stuff either. Now to jump ahead again, at a certain point in being an adolescent, being a teenager like me, you discovered folk music, among other kinds of music you were discovering. And for me, it was, I guess, the first Bob Dylan albums really resonated with me, and I followed him up through, I guess, Nashville Skyline after he had his motorcycle accident and came back fairly happy and well-adjusted and married. You know, the thrill was gone for me. I followed his career, of course, for the next 80 years, but all of that early, well, then when he went electric, everything was electrified. That was a great moment as well. But what was the artist or the album or what caught you up in folk music and everything that came along with it?
When Bob Dylan first hit the scene in New York City, I didn't get familiar with his own versions of his songs. I became more of a Bob Dylan fan when I was getting really interested in other people's versions of his songs, namely Peter, Paul and Mary, Gordon Lightfoot, Simon and Garfunkel to some degree,
Sure.
the Kingston Trio,
the
Highwaymen, Joan Baez, Judy Collins, and this was at a time, I guess when I was about 15, and I said to my parents, I'm not even sure why. Leading up to that, in 1962 or 63, when the Beatles hit America, and it was just before or just after they did the Ed Sullivan Show, and everybody everywhere was going crazy, and I loved all that early music, and I remember in my kitchen at home in Concord, New Hampshire, we had a little radio on the counter there in the kitchen, and I would turn it on to the only nearby music station you could find, and if they ever played any kind of Beatles songs, She Loves You, yeah, 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 or whatever, I had never picked up a guitar before ever in my life, but what I did pick up and hold and look at my reflection in the window in the kitchen, I used to play badminton in the backyard, and I had a badminton racket. You know what a badminton racket looks like? I used to stand in front of the window pretending that I was playing a guitar while I was singing along to the Beatles. That was my first indication, like, wow, do I really have to continue the rest of my life with a badminton racket?
Standing in front of a window.
Isn't there something better I could try? And I remember—
Instead, you transformed.
Well, long before I got this guitar, which was my baby, that picture was taken on the stage of the college I went to, Plymouth State College in New Hampshire. That was 1969 or 70.
Whoa.
Before I left New Hampshire, and I was doing a little show for the crowd there. And that guitar, let me first tell you, my first guitar was not this one. I asked my parents if they would consider buying me a guitar. I wanted to learn how to play guitar. They didn't think I would follow it along because they had already bought me a couple of years prior to that a clarinet, because I thought, I'd like to become Benny Goodman. I think I can do that.
You could do that.
I sucked at clarinet. It was
every clarinet player ain't a Benny Goodman.
In fact, the one and only time I ran away from home. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but okay, I'm going to say it. How far did I get from home when I ran away when I was in like 7th or 8th grade? I left my house, walked out the front door, went around the side to the garage, and I just stood there for about 2 hours, not even with a bag of clothes or any money, but I stood there with my clarinet case.
Rebel.
Until I couldn't stand there anymore, and I went back into the house and never told my parents about that. So
Maybe
my
that's for the
clarinet
best.
days were over, but they bought me a guitar. They said, if you think this is something you'd be interested in, try this out.
Good for them.
It was a $25 Sears and Roebuck Silvertone guitar with very coarse feeling, like steel strings. When you're first learning how to play a guitar, if you've never done it before, you've got to really
cut into your fingers,
because you've got to create new grooves in your fingertips that hurt like a son of a gun.
Is it worth it?
And I did that for 6 or 7 months, and I started learning some chords, and met my best friend for life, Tom, who had a similar piece of crap guitar, and we decided to become folk singers.
I'm sorry I forgot to include any pictures of Tom, but you guys performed together.
Oh, a lot. I went to New York first, and then he followed me, and we performed in New York. And we when we were still in high school, we got together with a girl friend of ours named Sue Piper, and she and I are still friends at the ripe old age of almost 74 years old when we were in high school together. And we became, the Concord Daily Monitor newspaper did a feature on us. We called ourselves the Shrewsbury Singers. We had matching crimson colored sweaters, pictures of us with our guitars. But the guitar that I had was now the second guitar that my parents bought me. They said, you know what? We think you're in the right path, and so we're going to buy you a better guitar now. Still Sears and Roebuck.
Top of the line, though.
But this was a $50 one now. and this was a nylon string guitar. So my grooves were already in my fingertips. So it was easier to play and to learn that. And so for a few years, this was all that Tom and I and Sue wanted to do. We were folk singers now. And we were covering all of our favorite groups, Peter, Paul, and Mary, and all the others. So we were singing Bob Dylan songs. Didn't matter to us whether he wrote them or someone else wrote them. We were just into what did it sound like and how could we make the songs sound like they're ours. We loved it. And at some point, getting out of high school and then getting into college, I loved being in college only because I got to do a lot of performing, a lot of singing. There were only two things that I take from going to college up in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Number one, my dormitory was just a few miles away from where the Betty and Barney Hill abduction took place.
Yes.
Never forget that. And the other thing that I came away from being in college, I don't know why, talk about past life thing, I was on the fencing team. I just always knew since I was a kid that if I ever had a sword or a saber or a foil in my hands, and if I was ever in trouble, I could defend myself. I used to watch the weekly shows on Disney of Zorro, the original, and all the movies that came of Zorro, and I always knew I can do that. The Errol Flynn Adventures of Robin Hood. Yes, I think I could do that.
I remember the actor who played Zorro in the very popular Walt Disney series, I guess of the early 60s, was an actor named Guy Madison.
Guy Williams.
Williams, right.
Who
played
become
Hispanic, but of course was as white as we are. And for me, what I really admired was when he would dispatch an enemy without killing him. It was, imagine the control you have to have of the sword to go zook, 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 and cut the cloth, but not scar the body.
Yeah, in the shape of the Z. I mean, it had such an effect on me. Oh, I should have sent you the next time. I'll send you a picture of me in the first year that I was on NBC Radio in New York. I was invited to a Halloween party costume party by the other members of NBC. So we all had to wear costumes. I showed up at the costume party as Zorro because by then I was living in New York.
And had black clothing.
And I yeah. And I went to a school, a fencing school in New York City to learn how to do stage combat.
Excellent.
And the guy who led the school, Alan Sudduth, his teacher taught Errol Flynn.
Oh.
And this guy had all the moves. And I went there.
You studied with the guy who studied with the guy who taught Errol Flynn fencing.
Errol Flynn. So in order to do this, I spent a little money and I bought a foil, a saber. You remember the big log scene in Adventures of Robin Hood where Robin Hood and Little John are trying to fight each other and they've got these long wooden like frame things that they're fighting each other with? I bought one of those too. And I have videotapes of me doing one and more than one saber fights.
It's amazing how many things, even as well as we know each other, that I learn about you that I say, one more like DNA strand that's the same, almost within reach. Right over there, I have a heavy Sheffield turn of the century British military sword.
Oh, yeah?
In Speigel. If you in the audience want to excuse me for about 12 seconds, I could probably walk around the table and bring it out and unsheath it.
Oh, this is much more interesting than UAPs. Wow. This interview has taken a turn for the better, I think. Oh, look at this. Wow.
Okay, this is the real deal.
Yes.
Some years ago, when my friend Kevin was discharged from the United States Army after serving in both Iraq and in Afghanistan, he gave me a special gift that he bought in Baghdad before he came home. And it is this. It is a,
wow,
well, pre-World War I, about 1900.
Pull it out.
Check
Pull
out
it
that
out.
grip.
Pull that out.
And of course, to attach to your belt. And then
here it comes. There it is. Whoa. Let me see the tip of it.
That's right. This is heavy gauge. And I'm not at liberty to say how many individuals I've dispatched with it, but the blade has been cleaned. If anyone wants to check for law enforcement, there's not a molecule of anybody's DNA on that baby now.
Wow. Wow.
Come and visit and I'll let you play with it.
Wow. I come and visit, I'm going to bring my own.
Well, that ends the somewhat violent part of this show, or suggestions of, we try to run it fairly peacefully. But going back to peace as opposed to war, we have this photo, and that's a 12-string. That's a beautiful guitar.
Martin D1235.
Oh,
that guitar
that's worth more than my house.
That the earlier picture with my other Martin was a 6-string. This was my friend Tom's 12-string.
You bought the right brand, baby.
Yeah. Well, forget the guitar. What do you think of the purple colors and the neck? Yeah, come on.
First of all, that collar you could cut cheese on. I really like the neckwear and the holder. Also, again, the color, and those are not button cuffs. Those look like faux mother of pearl snap cuffs to me.
Isn't this picture the epitome of everything that stands for meanwhile here on Earth?
I'm speechless. I guess.
And just so you know, this was 1970. I had no real interest in anything to do with UFOs. That wouldn't happen for another 3 years once I got to New York.
Now let's talk about that, and also the transition of the 3 years is interesting to me. Plus, at this point in your life, had you even given a moment's thought to a career in journalism?
No. All I wanted to do was to somehow make enough connections
To
in
be a professional musician.
in the recording industry,
Yeah.
to be able to do a pitch to a major recording company so that I could get a record deal for my music.
Yeah.
That was my whole reason for going to New York. And it's like you never know. And even until I started getting interested in that, just talk about stories of people you meet while I was trying to get little gigs in New York to perform. I worked in a very famous music store in the middle of Manhattan called Sam Ash Music. And this store was
A
located
very famous store.
it was on 48th Street between 7th Avenue and 6th Avenue, right in Manhattan. And the entire block
Yeah. Music stores.
on both sides of the street
Yeah.
were music stores.
It was,
And
My-
every famous recording artist, if they wanted any kind of music accessories, this is where they got their candy from. They would go to any one of these stores. And
Manny's is one of my favorites. My dad spent most of his career working in a building on 5th and 47. So I was there
yeah.
from childhood on. I knew that block like the back of my hand.
Oh.
And the instruments in those windows. And you
Yes.
could walk in, and every once in a while you'd see a famous musician, and often they'd just, perform while checking out a new guitar and pulling quite a crowd.
Yeah.
Very special days.
Well, you're leading me right into this story. My job at Sam Ash Music, I was a music accessories and instrument salesperson, and it just happened to be my turn to get the next customer who's coming in to buy anything.
Mhm.
And the door opened, and this guy came in, and we all knew who it was as soon as he walked in, but it was my turn. And I went over to him and I said, "You're Jackson Browne, right?" He said, "Yeah, I am." I said, "What can I do for you today?" He said, "Well, I'm in town to do a show, and I'm looking for a new kind of acoustic guitar, but I want something that not a lot of people have heard about yet. What can you show me?" And I said, "Well, we've got these new guitars that just came in from Vermont. It's called a Gurion guitar. They're handmade guitars, just like Martin guitars are. Follow me." And I brought him over to the wall. I took one of the Gurion guitars down, and like, "What am I going to do? Play it for Jackson Browne?" I said, "Here, try it out." I was no dummy. And he played this thing, and he loved it. He was just having a great old time with how big the sound was. He said, "I love this guitar. I tell you what, I'll buy 2 of them." I went, "Whoa, well, thank you, Jackson." So
You were paid on commission as well as salary?
Yeah, we did some.
Good.
I said, "Do you need any accessories?" He said, "No, I got all the accessories I need." And I said, do you want us to send them somewhere?" He said, "No, I'm gonna take them both with me. I've got a car outside." I said, "Of course you do." And he said to me when the bill of sale was all done, and he said to me, "So what are you doing tonight when you get off work here?"
What?
I said, "Well, I'm done work at 6:00. And what do you have in mind, Mr. Browne?" He said, "I'm doing a show tonight up at Carnegie Hall."
Oh, no.
Which was just like 8 or 9 blocks further north
Of course.
from where I was on 48th Street. He said, I'm going to give your name to the backstage entrance. So go to the backstage entrance around 6:45 and 7:00 and give them your name." And I said, "Okay, I'll be there. Thanks for the invitation." And I went up there, easy to find the back entrance of Carnegie Hall. It says stage door, I walked in. There was a guard there. "Can I help you, sir?" "Yes, my name is Lee Speigel. I think you have my name on the list." The guy checked. "Yep." Follow us. And they had some other guy escort me down a hall, up one flight of stairs to Jackson Browne's dressing room. And when I walked into the dressing room, and this is where the rest of that evening kind of gets a little foggy for me because, whoa, look what we have here. I walk into the dressing room, and Jackson's playing or tuning up whatever guitar he's going to use that night. And he says, "Come on in, Lee." And I wasn't looking at him, looking at the person who was sitting in the corner all by herself. And I realized, holy shit, it's Linda Ronstadt. Please,
what year was this?
1973.
Oh.
At like the height of her career. And really, like I say, I didn't faint, but I couldn't believe where I was at that moment in my history.
3 of you.
Wow. So like you just never know who you're going to meet
So cool.
at any moment. And it was one day while I was in the music store at Sam Ash. I was standing near the back of the store where they had all the woodwind instruments, and the two guys who were the salespeople there, they were old woodwind professionals from years and years ago. They had a little radio playing in the background, and it was tuned to 1010 Winds, which was the all news AM station in New York.
Grew up with that.
I just happened to be standing there, leaning against the counter, waiting for the next Jackson Browne to come in, you know. And I could hear the news, and the news reporter was saying something. This was like October 11th, 1973. Never forget that date. And the news item was something that had just happened off a fishing pier in Pascagoula, Mississippi.
Oh gosh.
And I went, well, what happened off the pier? Oh, these two fishermen, Charlie Hickson, Calvin Parker, were fishing, and they claimed that they were abducted by aliens. And I'm like, what? Excuse me, what? Say that again, please. And sometimes I get this confused, but I think it was the following week. This happened within a week of each other.
Yeah. It
was either October 11th that the Pascagoula UFO abduction took place.
Right.
And then a week later, on October 18th, 4-man Army helicopter crew over Ohio, headed by Lieutenant Colonel Larry Coyne, who you saw at the United Nations, they almost collided with a UFO and almost died. And I'm thinking, what? What are you telling me on the news now? What? What's going on here? And it was like kind of at that moment in time, in that week, that this light bulb appeared over my head and said, you know why you came to New York and you're a music, folk singer, and you want to get a recording contract? It ain't going to be because of your music. You got to start paying attention to this stuff. UFOs, abductions, and that's what got me really started. Again, just by chance. Hearing these two news items on the air, because very rarely did you hear about UFO stories in the media and when it wasn't being ridiculed.
I'll be damned.
Yeah.
Now, relatively shortly after this, coming up to 1975, something happens to you and you create something that really was a first in terms of UFO information.
Well,
what was the order of that? Did the event happen first? I'm trying to remember the exact month or the record.
The event was, okay.
And, actually, we have blown through our first. No, we haven't. Keep going. We got those extra 2 minutes.
Is it time for me to leave? You just give me the sign when you're ready to take a break.
I will.
It was after those first two very close encounters that I thought, well, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah.
I've never heard of this kind of stuff before. And I thought, well, I should start reading about this kind of material. The first book that I found at a local bookstore was called Beyond Earth, Man's Contact with UFOs by Ralph and Judy Blum. And at the time, Ralph Blum was a journalist. He'd written a number of books, but this was the first UFO book. And he was currently, at that time, he was writing for NBC just down the block from Sam Ash Music at 30 Rockefeller. He was working in an NBC News office, writing some of the script for what was going to be an NBC News white paper news report called, NBC News UFOs. What's going on? And so I got his book, loved the book, and in this book, in fact, the cover of the book was it was an illustration of what Charlie Hickson and Calvin Parker described as what it was that abducted them. And inside was Ralph's complete story of the Pascagoula incident, the complete story of the Major Larry Coyne helicopter encounter, and other astronauts that have had encounters and people in politics. And I'm going, all this stuff this is great. I'm reading all of these incredible encounters former Marine Major Donald Kehoe, who was probably the first ever UFO whistleblower in history. And boy, did he make a name for himself.
And a very credible one.
And did he piss off a lot of people in and out of the military and the government?
And went on to become a major best-selling author and
yes,
a serious television and radio personality.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, now we are closing in on our first hour.
Okay.
This is Peter Robbins with my very special guest and dear friend, Lee Speigel, and we will return shortly on Meanwhile Here on Earth. Stay with us.
Hey members, the new KGRA DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA DB.
Are we alone in the universe? The most important question facing humanity is on the verge of being settled once and for all. The Mutual UFO Network has been at the forefront of this journey for nearly 50 years. Our members worldwide are dedicated to the research, documentation, and awareness that will shape the future of humanity. Won't you join us?
It's not just a donation.
It's a warm blanket.
It's a bottle of clean water.
It's a roof and a bed.
It's knowing someone cares.
It's feeling safe.
It's a today that's better than yesterday.
Every dollar you can spare helps so much more than you can imagine. Please, donate now to help people affected by Hurricane Ian. Your support is urgently needed.
Discover the Observation Deck, a one-of-a-kind virtual event platform that takes video conferencing to the next level by using avatars to navigate a campus. There's so many areas and activities to choose from. There's a 1,000-seat auditorium, an expo hall, a nightclub, and even a beach. So come attend a conference, take a class, or hear a lecture on the incredible Observation Deck campus. Go to theobservationdk.com.
You're listening to the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. We provide unparalleled coverage of trending news in the world of ufology, cryptozoology, and paranormal phenomenon. Whether you're watching our video live stream or listening to one of our audio programs, you are getting the best from world-renowned researchers and hosts, guiding you through topics the mainstream won't touch. Miss one of your favorite programs? No problem. Head over to the members area at kgradb.com for access to our massive library of award-winning content. Make contact, stay connected, only at kgradb.com.
And welcome back to Meanwhile Here on Earth. Peter Robbins here with my special guest, Mr. Lee Speigel, on beautiful historic Long Island, New York. Before we were so rudely interrupted by the needs of commercial radio, we were discussing that moment of transition for you. You began to investigate your own first case. Was that before the record, and let's talk about the record right now, or your personal experience as we were leaving off on.
Yeah, let me give you the timeline. So I started reading books, UFO books, because I was just interested, and it was Ralph Blum's book that made me realize, look at all these people that he's got in his book. I would like to actually hear what these people have to say, and I think the public would like to hear them as well. What do I think I could do? And I made a few connections in New York at the time, and I knew, because just watching television at night, in primetime television back in 1975, CBS, Columbia Records, they had a division called Columbia House Records, and you could be watching something on TV at night, and suddenly there'd be like what they call the first infomercials, where they were going to offer the public recordings, 33 1/3 vinyl records of Mitch Miller and the Gang, or the famous Mantovani Strings. Order now, and we'll send you a special gift of a book or something or other. And if you don't like the recording, send it back to us, but keep the book as our gift.
Right. What a great pitch that was. I haven't thought of that in years.
Yeah. And I thought, wait a minute. No one's ever done an on-camera, on television promotion of a UFO product. There it is. And if I could somehow meet Ralph Blum and become friends with him and ask him to be part of a pitch that I could maybe get set up at CBS.
He only works a few blocks away.
Yeah, that's right. And try and get CBS to go along with the idea of, I would like to travel around the country, and with Mr. Blum's help, helping me.
And how old were you when you came up with this brainstorm involving CBS, NBC, and yourself?
Well, it was 74. 1974 was when the idea came to me. So 49, 59, 69. I was 24 years old.
Keep going.
So so I thought if I could kind of get to know Ralph Blum, and even that part of the story, I don't tell it all the time, but I knew that he was working somewhere in an office somewhere at 30 Rock, NBC. and I walked into 30 Rockefeller Plaza and went into the main lobby, and there was a big group of
information desk
at the security desk there. And I thought, wow, I can't get through there. I don't have a pass to get through there. And I went over to one of the people who was standing there in line, and I said, what are you all here for? And the guy said to me, we're here to go on an NBC studio tour. We're going to go see
a legendary tour, I might add.
A taping of a show called Jeopardy. I said, oh, well, that's kind of cool. And I waited and I waited and I waited. And finally, one of the NBC pages, the people who conduct the tour, said, all right, everybody, those of you coming on the tour, let's go through the security desk. Everybody stay together. We're going to start going onto the elevators on the other side of the desk. And I just walked through with them. Okay. And I got up to like the fourth or fifth floor. I had never been in that building before.
Pretty classy building.
Yeah. And so I stayed with the group because our first stop on the tour, we're going to go see a couple of tapings of this new thing called Jeopardy. We're going to go into the studio now. And I thought, well, what the hell, while I'm here.
I'm sure his office is nearby.
I'd like to go see a real quiz show. And I went into the studio with him. And that was back in the days when the famous announcer was a guy named Don Pardo.
Oh, my God.
He went on to become the announcer for Saturday Night Live. Yeah. So I was having a good time. And I sat there and did 2 days worth of tapings. Okay, everybody, we're going to continue the tour now. Let everybody leave the studio through those doors over there. Stay in line together as we go down the hall this way. And when they went to the end of the hall and started going around the hall, I turned around and went in the other direction by myself, looking at names of the doors that I was passing. Jesus. Until I knew kind of I was in the news division of NBC. And so I walked into a few of the rooms. Hi, can we help you with something? Yeah, I'm here. I'm here to see Ralph Blum. I know he's with the news division. I'm picking up something from him. No, he's not here. Hold on. Let me go to our computer and we'll see if we can find him for you. And they found Ralph Blum's name in the computer. Yeah, he's actually on the next floor up. He's in room whatever. That's where you find him. Thank you so much. And I went up to that, still thinking, now what am I going to do? I'm feeling like early Indiana Jones. I'm just making it up as I go now because I have no idea. So I found myself to the room, went inside. Hi, my name is Lee Speigel. I'm here to pick up Mr. Blum's mail. And they said, well, it's a good thing you are because he's got a pile here because he's not here today. Hold on a second, I'll get it for you. That's all they asked of me. They brought a pile of Ralph Blum's mail, put a rubber band around it, put it in an envelope and said, tell Ralph we say hi. I said, thank you very much. I will. And I walked out of there thinking, holy crap, did I just do that? Because what I just did was illegal, essentially. And so I walked out of the building and I started looking through because on a lot of the letters to Mr. Ralph Blum was his address in New York, Madison Avenue address. Now I knew where the guy was getting his mail. So I get into a cab that said, take me to Madison Avenue, please. and again, I still didn't know what I was going to do once I got to that address, but it didn't matter. I had made that choice. Got there, and I saw his name on the buttons outside, but instead of hitting that button, I hit the button that said superintendent. I hit the super button, and about a moment later, the front gate opened, a guy came in, and he said, did you ring for the super? I said, yeah, I'm delivering some mail for Mr. Blum. Are you the super? He said, yeah. Oh, that's great. Let me just leave him a note. And I very quickly wrote on a piece of paper, dear Mr. Blum, my name is Lee Speigel. I just got through finishing your book that you wrote with your wife. I love the book. I've come up with an idea of how I think you could really get a great promotion out of your book. I would love to be able to talk to you about it. I hope you'll call me. Here's my phone number in Manhattan. Thank you very much for your time. And wow. I left. And about 2 days later, my phone rang in New York. And I said, hello. And he said, is this Lee Speigel? I said, yes, it is. He said, my name is Ralph Blum. How the hell did you get my mail? And I thought, are the cops going to knock on my door? I mean, oh, God.
Wow.
And I said, well, let me tell you how I got your mail. I hope you won't turn me in, but I'm a huge fan of yours, and I've got an idea. If you've got the time, if you're in New York, I'd love to meet you. And he said, well, you got balls, kid.
Oh, jeez.
And so, and all I could think of at that point was, my father's going to love this story. And so we met, Ralph and I, and his wife Judy and I met. We became fast friends, and Ralph had some connections in the CBS Black Rock building in New York. And we did a whole pitch to the CBS brass there.
Oh my gosh.
And they said, well, what is it you want from us? And I said, well, this is Mr. Blum. This is his book. Look at his book. It's a bestseller. Ralph is going to give me all the contact numbers, home phone numbers of all these people that are in the book. And then I will call them, I'll introduce myself to them, and I'll get them to agree to let me come visit them across the United States with my recording equipment. Oh. And we'll put together a record album that I would like Columbia House to offer for sale on TV. And I know you do these infomercials. I would like to produce and to write not only the album, but I would like to write the commercial. And they said, oh, really? Okay, tell us more. Okay. Are you going to narrate it? And I said, no, I'm not the right person to narrate it. But if we get a deal here, I will find someone who I want to narrate this album. They said, well, who would be your first pick? And I said, Rod Serling. And they said, well, do you think you can get him? I said, well, I'm not sure, because I'd heard through the grapevine that he had cancer and that he wasn't doing very well at this late stage in his life. And I said, well, if it's not Rod Serling, then I have a number two consideration. Back in the days when Rod Serling was the TV host of The Twilight Zone, at the same time, there was another black and white TV show called One Step Beyond.
With John Newland.
John Newland.
Your host. What a classy guy he was.
I loved that show.
Totally sold me as a kid, too.
Similarities between both shows. Twilight Zone and One Step Beyond. Twilight Zone took relatively unknown actors who would later become A-list actors.
Absolutely.
Same thing with One Step Beyond.
Yeah.
Twilight Zone did stories about weird, unexplained phenomena stuff that maybe or maybe not was true. One Step Beyond took weird stuff that we think may have happened, and same kind of weird, mysterious music. Rod Serling appeared at the beginning and the end of his shows. John Newland was at the beginning and the end of his shows. It's like, wow. When I found out that Rod Serling couldn't do it, I contacted John Newland in Hollywood, introduced myself to him, said, I've got this deal with CBS. We're going to do this thing about UFOs. I'm a big fan of yours. Would you consider being the narrator of the album? And would you also consider being the on-screen pitch person for the album? Because I don't know if people have seen you since One Step Beyond days. I would love people to see you again pitching this UFO album. And he said, we were having lunch at an outdoor restaurant in, it was right in Santa Monica. And just over a handshake, he said, yes, I'd love this. I'll come to New York.
Gosh.
I'll do this, guy. This is great. I would love to do this for you. And that's how it all went down. CBS gave me the money I needed to buy a gigantic, and it was like this big, it weighed about 40, 45 pounds. This was the smallest cassette recorder I could buy.
Oh my God.
To travel around, to go in and out of airports. And it had one little button on it called Dolby On, Dolby Off. And for people who don't know what Dolby is, Dolby was, and it still is, I guess, to some point, is a noise reduction part of making recordings. You don't want to record someone and have the thing come out with.
Yeah.
You want to get rid of all that kind of hiss.
Yeah.
Now you never have to hear hiss on anything that you record. So I was traveling around.
So you really, CBS gave you a budget to travel around the country, feed you, stay at hotels, transportation to and from. How long? What places did it take you to?
All the places where these people live. I went from New Hampshire. I went up to Canada, to two places. I went to the very first person I ever interviewed when he was living out in, I think like Redondo Beach. Was that California? Was Stan Friedman. The nuclear physicist Stan Friedman. And Stan would say to me, well, while you're here, there are other people here in California. One's at this Air Force base. We've got, Dr. So-and-so who works for McDonnell Douglas. They're all very into UFOs. I can connect you up with these people and just start going up and down the coast. And as I started making these arrangements, who should be the next person that would be my second person I interviewed for the album? Astronomer J. Allen Hynek. And he said, I'd love to be on your album. And I remember seeing pictures of this guy when I was growing up in New Hampshire, when I was like 9 or 10 years old. And every time there was a UFO incident or flap anywhere in the country, the Air Force would always send their scientist guy for Project Blue Book. He was with the Air Force for 22 years. They would always send him to a place to have a press conference, and they basically said to him, make this go away. Yeah. Explain it away however you can. Do it in front of a lot of media. Do it in front of the public. Make it go away. Sweep it under the rugs. Yeah. And that was when, at one place in Dexter, Michigan, in 1966, where a lot of people were claiming that they saw something.
Swamp gas.
And it was
not Dr. Hynek's finest moment.
It was Allen Hynek's worst moment of all time. And he thought he was doing the right thing when he said, many of the sightings that people are reporting here in Dexter, Michigan, could be due to the rising effects of certain kinds of swampy gas coming out. Well, the first person who took real issue of that statement with Dr. J. Allen Hynek was then Michigan Congressman Gerald Ford.
Mm-hmm.
And he went on a rampage to the media saying, Dr. J. Allen Hynek with the Air Force, Project Blue Book, is claiming that our citizens, our very reliable citizens, are seeing swamp gas. No, this is not fair. I'm not asking for, I'm demanding a congressional investigation. And like
right.
2 years later, he got it.
1968.
The 1968 congressional investigation on UFOs that Dr. Allen Hynek was one of the speakers at.
Yeah.
And so Gerald Ford, this was like the whole thing of Gerald Ford as well. And so the first time I met and interviewed Allen Hynek, we really liked each other. He invited me to his home in Evanston, Illinois, right outside of Chicago. He said, so what are you going to do on this album? Who else are you going to interview? And I can turn you on to. He turned me on to Dr. David Saunders. Dr. David Saunders, with University of Chicago psychologist.
Yes.
But I didn't realize that Dr. David Saunders was on the original Condon Committee. That was the government committee that blew off all UFO things. Right. And as a result of him disagreeing with that committee, he wrote a famous book called UFOs, Yes. And so he became part of the UFO, and I called him up because Allen Hynek gave me his number. And I said, I'm working on this record. I've already interviewed XYZ. Astronauts Gordon Cooper and Jim McDivitt are coming along with this. Dr. Hynek recommended you. Are you available for me to interview you? And he said, yes, come out to Chicago. Love to talk to you. And it was falling into place. And it was kind of about this time when I called my parents. And whenever I spoke to them, they used to get on extension cords, phones, because they just wanted to know how their son was doing in New York. Well, so how's the music industry going? Well, look, I'm meaning to tell you about something, and now I'm going to tell you. I have decided, because you've been my biggest supporter in my music career, but now I'm going to tell you I'm switching gears. I'm no longer in New York to get a recording contract for my music, and there was silence on the other end.
Whoa.
And my mother kept being silent. My dad, so what are you going to do? I said, well, Dad, Mom, I just got a recording contract, but it's not what you're thinking. It's not music, although there will be music as part of this product.
Yeah.
But I'm going to start interviewing them like you see on TV talk shows about something called UFOs. And my father went, UFOs? Is that what I think it is? And I said, well, what do you think it is, Dad? And finally he said, I think that's a great idea. That's amazing. UFOs, you mean those things in the sky? And I said, yeah, Dad. Mom, you still there? You know.
Aww.
And they finally were totally on board with this.
Wow. To
the point where just before the United Nations presentation that you attended in 1978, my mom and dad, my younger brother, and one of my cousins all got into their car, the family car in New Hampshire, drove to New York in a snowstorm, and came to the United Nations to see that presentation.
Before I'm going to come back to that, but at a certain point,
yes,
it was done, and here it is, this historic record album
of the UFO. So while I was working on this album, I had done all the interviews already for it. This was like April 1975. I was at home editing things and just putting things and writing the script and doing all kinds of things about it. I got a call from Dr. Hynek in Chicago. And he said, well, how's the album coming? And I said, it's coming really great. What's up with you? And he said, well, listen, I'm getting these phone calls from sheriffs, deputies, highway patrolmen, police chiefs down in the Lumberton, North Carolina area very rural area. And for the last couple of nights in a row, they're seeing something strange in the sky that we haven't really heard much about here in 1975. They're asking for my help to investigate. And I told them, well, I can't get down there right now, but I'm asking you, Lee, do you have time while you're working on the album? Can you get down to North Carolina and interview all of these law enforcement people and get them to tell you what they've been seeing? And if you write up some good reports, I'll publish your findings through the Center for UFO Studies. So I said, all right, Alan, what are they describing to you? What are they telling you they're seeing? He said, well, it's something we've not heard much about. It's kind of a boomerang shape. It's a triangular shaped object. And we've just not heard anything like that. And I said, well, wait a minute. Are you telling me you'd like me to go down there and interview them for something that basically sounds like it's a flying Dorito?
The kind of call we all get from Alan Heiner.
And he said, look, if you don't want to go, and I said immediately, no, Alan, don't finish that thought.
Oh my
You're
God.
the last person on earth I want to piss off. I'm going.
Oh, man.
If at the very least, to get a lot of good interviews, if you want to publish my findings, that would be great. And down to North Carolina, I went. And within a couple of hours of me being picked up at the local airport in Fayetteville, North Carolina, driven to the sheriff's department, the sun went down, and I was getting friendly with all the officers there. And then sheriff's dispatcher, Ron Thompson, was starting to get the calls from private citizens and law enforcement people about, this thing it's back. And immediately we all went into official cars and started going down these rural roads, staying in touch with all the different cars through the car radios.
Yeah.
We all converged in front of a big field. And I know that you know what I'm leading up to. Do you have a picture? There we go. We're standing in front of this field, and we didn't see this thing at first, but you can see the cars with their lights and the guys wearing their 6-shooters.
Yeah.
This triangular-shaped object was further back at the top of the tree level. And it was just moving from left to right, very slowly, blinking red and blinking white. Then when it was just about the other side of the field across from us, it started moving across the field in our direction. And it got closer and closer and closer until it stopped right there in the sky above us. And it was because we could see those red lights underneath it, the white lights. It was the reflection of those lights that allowed us to see, oh yeah, it's shaped like a triangle. It's shaped like a boomerang. Now we could see it.
Lee, could you estimate about how long any of the three sides were?
Well, I can do better than that. When we all compared notes, all the cops are on me because they're used to taking dimensions of things.
What great witnesses to have with you.
Yeah, they said they didn't think that it was much bigger than one of the patrol cars. I thought, really? Now, as we watched it, at the very top of this thing, wherever my finger's pointing, there was a bigger light, and all of a sudden, a beam came out of it. And when it hit the ground, right in front of where I was standing, I'm the one with his arms out, going, "What the hell?"
Whoa.
And it was right on the ground. Imagine my heart rate at that point, thinking, wow, how confident do I feel? I'm surrounded by guys with their 6-shooters. Wait a minute. If these things are here to eat us or to abduct us or whatever us, where we would never be heard from again, how confident am I feeling right now? Those thoughts are going on in my mind, and the beam of light that was at my feet back up into the thing. The entire object turned slowly. Oh, and did I say it never made any sound the whole time it was hovering in the air?
Yeah.
It turned about 45 degrees. The whole thing turned like an amber color and shot away very quickly. Everybody get into the cars. And I was in the car with Ron Thompson, and all along from one county to another, we kept coming upon other law enforcement people who we knew from the car radios. They had just had their own encounters. So we stopped. I found the guys. I introduced myself. I said, "Can I interview you? What did you just see?" And in one case, 2 police officers said that they were outside of their patrol car, and they saw this thing coming up the road in their direction, moving really fast. And as soon as it got to just about like overhead, it made an immediate 90-degree angle turn. And people are all saying, if there was any living thing inside that, it couldn't survive that kind of gravitational force to go like that. We found another guy, Police Chief Gary Moore, sitting in his patrol car. And I found him, big, burly guy who, if you had to be lost in the forest or in a dark alley somewhere, he's the kind of guy you'd want to be there with you to take care of you. "Hello, Chief. I understand you had a little activity around here, a little excitement." He said, "Yeah. Tell me what happened." I got my microphone in front of him. He said, "Well, I was sitting here in the car eating my sandwich. All of a sudden, the whole inside of the front of the car lit up." "What did you do?" He said, "I looked out the window and looked straight up." Not unlike what Richard Dreyfuss did 3 years later in Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Yes.
And I said, "Well, what did you do then, Chief?" He said, "Well, I reached behind me. We always keep a large emergency light, like a giant lantern.
Sure.
For emergencies." So I just reached in, pulled it to the front, held it outside, and I blinked up at the object. And it blinked back at me. "Really? Did anything else happen?" He said, yeah. I blinked twice. And it blinked twice back at me. And then it took off. So,
Lee, at this, I want to ask you specifically, the genesis of your involvement accelerated from intellectual curiosity to having this really extraordinary original idea and daring yourself to do it, and then having it done, and then having Dr. Hynek send you on this investigation.
I know.
Then having this happen. I am curious about that moment when, it's a pretty heady thing you're there with law enforcement. You are becoming someone in this work. You are connected. And all of a sudden, you're not somebody telling a story. You're somebody who's part of a story.
Part of a story.
What was that like?
I didn't know at the time, but several years later, our mutual friend, David Marlar,
yes,
who has this incredible organization now. He's got almost the largest collection of previously classified and personal UFO collections. In fact, he just recently became the curator of the J. Allen Hynek Center for UFO Studies Complete Archives, the J. Allen Hynek Personal Project Blue Book Archives, the NICAP original. David's got everything. And he wrote the definitive book of triangular UFOs.
That's right.
And it was in this book, even before David and I met, that he talked about this sighting from Lumberton, North Carolina. And he said, based on his research, this was the best well-documented multiple witness incident of a triangular UFO in America. And when he told me this, after his book was published, I said, really? Because what about like the 1997 Phoenix Lights? And he said, that was 1997. You saw this in 1975.
Right.
Yours was the first in the country. And I went, wow.
That's it. That is exactly it. The first. Now, this has to have had an impact on a lot of things in your life, but almost immediately, you started to turn your attention to something much larger, even than
I'll tell you.
pioneering album. Let's talk about how that genesis started.
Can I tell you one thing related to the album? The moment that really got me, that convinced me that I'm onto something, was when I got a letter in early 1976, after we went really public with this album. I got a personal letter from Dr. Hynek. I think I sent you the letter.
I don't think so.
It was part of the transcript that I sent you of this entire.
Oh, okay.
And it was a letter from Dr. Hynek to me, basically saying, "Dear Lee, I'm much impressed with your record album, UFOs: The Credibility Factor, and quality work in the UFO field is very hard to come by, especially in 1975.
Yes.
And I think your record deserves widespread promotion. The Center for UFO Studies and myself will promote it. This should go out to students everywhere. And looking forward to the next thing that you're going to do." And when I saw this, like a letter from Alan Hynek, so that got me thinking, okay, I've done the album, fine. Now what?
Yeah, exactly.
What next? I mean, do I do Credibility Factor Part 2? I don't think so. What else can I do that can get the attention of the media and of the public? And along the way of thinking about that, I didn't know this at the time, but the Edmund Scientific Catalog that you mentioned at the top of the show, they approached, and this was a catalog that was only subscribed to by scientists and scientific.
Oh no, a lot of us. I subscribed to it for years.
Yeah,
I brought a number of things from them, including a Curlean photographic generator that I used for years before a friend of mine kind of inherited and started to use it. A wonderful catalog, but yes, mostly professionals, but anybody could subscribe.
Yeah, and I don't even remember how I found out about this, or if the magazine or the catalog sent it to me, or Alan Hynek sent me the magazine. But at some point along the way, Edmund Scientific approached Dr. Hynek and said, for the first time in the catalog's history, we want to devote the catalog to UFOs, because we've never done this before, and we think now that there's a real scientific thing that is going on here. Dr. Hynek, will you give us the honor? Will you choose products that you personally choose that you think are the most credible products that should be offered to the public about UFOs? And they wrote up this whole thing. There's a whole one-page ad in the issue, and I had sent that to you as well with the transcript of the record. And they basically went through all the things. And they even did a whole background of Dr. Hynek, former United States Air Force Project Bluebird Science, and he's the man who's picked all of these products for you. And they chose a slideshow that Alan liked. And other things, a couple of books that they liked, even 2 books that he and Jacques Vallée had written. And at the bottom of the list, they referred to this incredibly stereo record album called UFOs: The Credibility Factor. And I'm looking at this going, oh my God, this is my album. In the Edmund Scientific Catalog, I couldn't believe it. I'm going, God.
That's quite.
I had nothing to do with that. So I'm thinking, all right, what else can I do now? I mean, I'm not.
This is sort of the moment that I'm really curious about, because you have a history of kind of seeing a dream you want to follow and basically daring yourself to do things that other people would say, well, I'm not going to push through that frontier.
Yeah.
Like Mr. Bloom's address. That's talk about chutzpah.
Well, I'm thinking, what else can I do that can reach out around the world and get people's attention? Because this is obviously, I'm having some kind of a little impact to some little degree now. Where could I go? What could I do? And I don't even know how the moment came to me, but it was like, wait a minute, is there one place on Earth that's kind of a place where people turn to for international news and events? And I thought, and again, I'm living in New York City. I'm thinking, wait a minute, New York City, United Nations. I'm just like, not that many blocks away from the United Nations. And I thought, let me start talking to a few people I know and see what people think of an idea that would it be nice? Is it feasible? Is it possible that I could do something at the United Nations? And everybody I asked,
are you crazy?
Oh no! It was probably "Are You Crazy?" But don't mention it to anybody, because here's what will happen. You can't just go up to the front door of the United Nations and knock on the door and say to someone, "Hi, my name is Lee Speigel. I would like to know if there's the name of somebody here who I could talk to about coming here."
About setting up a permanent study committee on UFOs.
About doing a presentation about UFOs. Because people said to me, my family said this, my friends, they said, if you do anything like that, one of two things will happen. You will either be politely asked to leave the premises, or you will be unpolitely arrested. And so I had to ask more people, if something wants to be done at the United Nations, how do you go about doing it? And I don't even remember who told me this, but they just said, well, it's common knowledge that if you want to do a presentation, you either have to be either a member of a country, you have to be a citizen of a country that is very interested in talking about UFOs worldwide, or you have to be named as a delegate to a country that can then officially bring you on board if it's a country that you already know they're interested in it. I went,
great. Where did you go from there?
Yeah. And there was nothing I didn't know at that point. This was like late 1976, right after my album came out. And when the Edmund Scientific Catalog came out. And then starting in 1977, still trying to figure out, well, what am I going to do now? I started seeing these news items in New York, how the prime minister of a little Caribbean country called Grenada, Eric Gary, has his own personal UFO crusade that he's trying to get the United Nations to let him do something there. And I'm going, what? Eric who? What? What's this? And I started looking up. There was no place to look up because this was 1976. This was like a few years before we had anything called an internet. You know, you want to look up something back then, you had to go to the library, or make a lot of phone calls.
Yeah.
So I just waited. And then there were more times that Eric Gary had little press conferences, and he's saying, back in my country of Grenada, we have many UFO sightings. I've had my own encounters, and I would like to have Grenada become the focal point of some kind of an international committee. And so, I'm looking forward to doing this. Maybe next year, maybe in the next year or two. And so I thought, all right, I've got to figure something out here. And I contacted, because it was easy to do at this point, I called the New York City Information. May I please have the main number for the mission of Grenada at the United Nations? Because every country in the world has an office at the United Nations in New York. It's called a mission. Yeah. Easy to get a general local phone number. And I called, and I got through to one or more of the ambassadors of Grenada and introduced myself to them and said, I've been paying attention to your prime minister. It looks like he's trying to get some momentum built for the United Nations, but I'm not really seeing the media paying a lot of attention to him. So what I would like to offer your prime minister, I recently produced a spoken word documentary record album.
Yeah.
UFOs, The Credibility Factor, for CBS. This is a big company. If you invite me down to your offices, I would like to bring you a copy of the album that I would like you to give to your prime minister as a gift with my compliments. And they said, okay, come see us. And down to the Grenada mission I went, and got very friendly with one of their ambassadors. And they, in fact, you got a little premature there, but that's okay. They said, come on down. We'd like to hear your proposal. I wrote the initial proposal to them. We'd be happy to send this down to Grenada to our prime minister, and we'll get back to you and let you know what he thinks about this. A couple of weeks went by. They called me and they said, well, Mr. Speigel, Prime Minister Gary really enjoyed your proposal. He's coming to New York in a couple of weeks to be knighted in a ceremony where he will become Sir Eric Gary. we would like to invite you to that ceremony. It's going to be.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that.
Yeah,
Well,
I would love to come there. And I don't know if I even said anything stupid like, will there be food there?
what do you wear to a night
Oh,
ceremony? I know what you take with you.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. No, I had like a jacket and tie, but that was about it. And I went down there, went alone, and I went to the ceremony. It was big pomp and circumstance and a lot of great stuff. And a few minutes later, they escorted me into a private room. Then they brought the prime minister in, now Sir Eric Gary. And
so you meet him on the day that he is knighted.
Oh yeah. And not only that, but they introduced us and they left us alone. And I remember thinking as we were shaking hands,
somebody make a mistake.
Why are they allowing the leader of their country to be alone with this guy that nobody really knows?
UFO nut.
And so the prime minister said, I listened to your record album, enjoy all the people who are on it. What is it that you think you could help me with? And I said, well, Mr. Prime Minister, with all due respect, I've been following your speeches, and I don't think that you're getting the kind of response from the United Nations that you deserve. If you like the people who are on my album, and I'm friends with all of them now, I could get many, if not most of them, to come to the United Nations on your behalf and really make the UN listen to what you want to do here, but with people who have incredible pounds of credibility in their lives. And over a handshake deal, I became a delegate of Grenada. And the next thing that happened, they sent me, and this is a much bigger version of the smaller card. This was my UN official Grenada delegate card. It's like, whoa, look at this.
And you don't even look Grenadian.
I know. And then what I started getting, which I knew was one of the reasons why our State Department started to keep an eye on me, I started getting checks from like the United Official Bank of Grenada, because what they wanted to do was they wanted to make sure that as their official delegate and as the organizer of this thing that was going to happen later this year, they wanted to pay my expenses. So they didn't want it to come across like I was being paid like a fee or a salary. And so I started getting checks to cover like all my bills. And then the next thing that I knew was going to happen, I was being invited on July 14th, 1978, to the United Nations, to a closed-door meeting with the people who I wanted to be my speakers at the UN. And we had a private meeting with the Secretary General, Kurt Waldheim. I think you got that picture up there somewhere. And there it is, July 14th. And you look at these people, you know, looking pretty much clockwise from left. Astronaut Colonel Gordon Cooper, astronomer Jacques Vallée, astronomer astrophysicist Claude Poher, astronomer J. Allen Hynek, Grenada Prime Minister Sir Eric Gary. Kurt Waldheim at the head of the table. And you can really see the head of a man named Morton Gleisner, the Special Political Committee. And then there's me having a hair day with Jacques Vallée across the table from me. Leonard Stringfield, and then there's psychologist David Saunders, you know?
Yes, and Len Stringfield, who's one of my favorite people in the field of all time.
What a group of people I would find myself with. I just wanted
I can hardly believe, this is amazing, isn't it?
That was the moment. I just wanted to say to everybody I know, please, anybody, pinch me. I can't believe this photograph.
Yeah.
And so you asked for like a moment. There was the moment. And the whole reason we were there was the Secretary General wanted to know, okay, we've arranged for you to be in the Special Political Committee in November later this year. What exactly are you going to do? What's your plan? And I took it over, and we all had things to say about it, but it was like, I couldn't believe my eyes that it had come this far. And I've said to this day, and this is the truth, if I had never put together UFOs, the credibility factor,
Yeah.
That door to the United Nations would never have opened to me.
No.
Never. None
These
of
hearings
that.
wouldn't have happened.
You never would have gone to that presentation because there never would have been a presentation.
And there'd never be a photo of me in the lobby with my mom and dad.
You know, it's like that UFO album was my door opening to the Prime Minister. If it wasn't for that album, it never would have happened. It's amazing.
And then we move on to the actual day of the hearings. And as you and I know, and some New Yorkers remember, the day before, New York City was hit by a really major blizzard. It was bad enough that Gordon Cooper had to have his flights canceled because there was no way in to the New York airports. But the city was shut down.
My parents drove from New Hampshire in that blizzard just to come to New York to be with me. Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, my parents came all the way from West 57th Street. Well, they both played hooky that day anyway for their jobs. But it really was an historic event. And this pair of photos, for me, kind of blows my mind because I didn't even know they existed until you brought them to my attention about a year and a half ago.
Did you go to the press conference that we're looking at here?
No.
Oh.
I wasn't allowed in. I didn't have the credentials for this one. I went to the big one, you know, where everybody spoke in the General Assembly room itself.
In the main room, yeah.
Yeah. No, this was not open to me. And there you are. It's really how ironic to find yourself at a moment in history with people that history will record, knowing that at 24, 25 years old, this event at the United Nations that was so historic simply would not have happened if you hadn't been stubborn and creative and kind of courageous and a little reckless and driven by a very real truth. Mazel tov on that yet again. It really is an extraordinary accomplishment to have had it happen to you so young. I also want to say that having followed the events and having the excitement of having been there in my way professionally as a partial editor on Komen von Kavetsky's really actually very far-sighted paper on potential of misinterpreting a genuine UFO incursion over the United States of the Soviet Union as hostile aircraft and the chaos, the debacle, the disaster that could result. But even to the point of the published photos, which for me, you know, part of my archive, I had no idea that they were published, that these were color photos. They were never released, only through you.
Right.
These photos blew my mind years after the fact.
So this is during Alan Hynek's.
Yeah, look where he's sitting.
And look at the next color photo that would show Jacques Vallée.
Well, first off, so the next black and white, once again, a very young Jacques Vallée, in 1978. I had never heard any of these people speak. I'd never been to a UFO conference at this point in my life. This was the very first UFO event I started with. And once again, amazing.
Now look at the three of us. Alan Hynek in the upper left, Jacques Vallée giving his speech, and in the upper right, the guy with the beard, that's me sitting behind them, just going over some last-minute details with one of the ambassadors of Grenada. I love this picture because this was the first time that the three of us were together, photographed at the UN. I didn't know this picture was even being taken during Jacques' speech.
If it had been just half an inch difference, you would have been written out of history at this moment. This is it's a real advise and consent kind of photo, and everybody there is a major player, and you're the one responsible for it. You're still literally a kid, even though you can grow a beard. We go on to another extraordinarily convincing presentation.
That's right.
As I recall, Lieutenant Colonel's coins, when the UFO came in over them and they felt concerned enough to try to get the hell out, he pulled a maneuver to drop as fast as they could, and instead they were drawn up.
That's right.
additional 1,800 feet before they were released, to their own control again. And then again, unfortunately, not able to attend. But as we remember, his statement was very much read into the record.
Oh, yeah.
And then during a break, again, my mom and dad, who were just really interested that we would have a window on this world that was so special, there was a break, and we were out in the lobby in the Secretariat building, really quite a remarkable, timeless, modern space. And at the time, of course, unlike now where you can't smoke anywhere, anything at all.
Oh, look at this.
This is when you could smoke away in any building and lobby. And there's my dad going through the program in the afternoon.
Wow.
Me wearing my one suit with my very nice 70s glasses, and my mom beaming at me with that eternal Pall Mall in her left hand in this case. And a UN photographer came strolling up to us and just said, I'm curious of what you're doing here and what you're about. And we introduced ourselves, and he took this photo. Again, after the break, we could have been sitting next to your parents
I know.
in the gallery. And you and I could have met that day. In fact, as opposed to more than a dozen years later, when I first did your show and we started our friendship in the late 80s.
Yeah.
Amazing how it happens.
It is amazing. I keep saying, you never know what's going to happen, no matter what kind of plans you might have. Do I have time to tell you a quick story?
As we come into our last minutes,
okay.
I just want to kind of zoom through this. You are at this point, you've got the job. You are an NBC radio host, major. And then you get a writing job that rethrust you into public attention when Omni was a major American, popular culture publication. And here is you with a very dear friend of ours.
This is when I gave Stan Friedman his Lifetime Achievement Award at the UFO Congress in 2013. I was so happy to do that.
This next photo, I've joked with you that it's a photo of two of the all-time greats in ufology, and it couldn't have been a very big deal to Photoshop yourself in like that.
It was the first time since the United Nations that Jacques and Stan and I got together anywhere. I was so happy.
1978. Amazing.
Yeah. And this is
nobody has this bragging right.
I mean, talk about Lee Speigel and Travis Walton
comparing
holding up posters of their beams of light. Oh, and I should tell you, my encounter happened in November. No, what am I saying? Mine was in April of 75. His was a few months later in 75. It's like, whoa. And then Jacques and I signing autographs and talking to the public.
Yeah.
This is when I was interviewing Jacques for the Phenomenon documentary that I was one of the producers of.
And coming right up to that documentary.
Senator Harry Reid and James Fox and me.
Absolutely amazing. I just don't have enough superlatives, my friend. We are actually out of time right now. And I just want to say people can follow you on your radio show. Give them the call letters and the name again.
It's called Edge of Reality Radio.
It is indeed. And that is a weekly show on our friendly competitor and their call line.
It's the UNX Radio Network, and I'm there Thursday nights, 8:30 Eastern Time, from 8:30 to 10.
Indeed. And Lee, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Listeners and viewers, return again Monday, coming up 1 week from today, when we will have Pulitzer Prize winner, journalist, and author of the great John Mack biography, Ralph Blumenthal, and his wife, Deborah, an award-winning journalist and writer, talking about their very first collaboration, a children's book on UFOs that will be a game changer. It will be their very first interview on the subject. Stay well, stand up for what you believe in, and be kind to each other. See you next week.